Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Martin, and welcome back to this week's episode of Wedding Photography Unveiled. How is everybody doing? This year, I'm actually doing really well, actually, I have to say. Things haven't been as busy as last year because Diagra and I took a very conscious decision last year to make sure we didn't take as many weddings on as we have done in previous years. And I think this has actually showed in summer, which has been absolutely amazing. In fact, we even managed to get almost a week off with the boys we just went up north near Hadrian's Wall, actually, and we had a week in August, which I don't know, I can't remember the last time I managed to take a week off in the middle of wedding season. But yeah, it's just by I think in previous years I would do like 50 to 60 weddings a year. This year I knocked it back to, I aimed 45, but this year I actually ended up on more like 50 weddings, which is still, a good number. I know a lot of you do a lot less than that, but for me, it felt like a good amount of weddings, but not as crazy as previous years. And like I said, it shows. At the moment, I've only got 2 weddings in the queue, and one of those is like 70% done. So as soon as I get that done, hopefully I can knock that out either tonight or tomorrow, and then I'll be down to one. Although I have to confess, I do have a triple header at the end of this month, which, well, it should be good fun. I've done more than that before, and they all look like epic weddings, so that will be good to see how I stand up at the end of that. And that will obviously add back to my queue, but I think I'll be all right. I think I'll be all right. How are you guys all doing? Are you up to your necks in editing? Um, you know, this week I thought what I'd do is talk about, because I know a lot of you will be that high up to your neck, up to your eyeballs, in fact, of editing. And I just thought, what I'm going to do is talk about what I'm doing now to prepare my business for 2026, which some of you are probably going, oh my God, mine, I've got so much editing that I don't even want to think about marketing. And what I want to say is, you know, I really want to, if you don't take anything away from this episode, I just want to make sure you sort of understand that, in my opinion, marketing is a core critical business activity. Editing is not. In fact, I've often said that editing is actually, I class that as unproductive time. We don't make any extra money from editing. It's a wedding we've already been paid for. It's gone. So what we need to do is focus on the next 12 to 18 months and get weddings that are, from couples who are getting married in the future. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not saying for a minute that we shouldn't be editing. Obviously, we do and we should need to edit our photos for the client. But all I'm trying to say is, don't just completely ignore the marketing, let it all fall by the wayside, because we work on a 12 to 18 month cycle in this industry. So what we do now only really pays off in 12 to 18 months. So if you just completely forget about marketing in the peak season, then you've got a huge gap in your year where you've done bugger all, basically. And then what often happens is what I call them martyrs to the cause. You'll see people online going, oh my God, I'm so busy. I haven't had time to do anything. I'm just like editing long hours, blah, 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 blah. And then next thing you know, they're like wondering where all their inquiries are, but at the end of the day, you've done nothing for a long period of time. So things move on, the world moves on, and you just fall out of people's minds, and they book other people who are marketing, hopefully like myself. So yeah, my advice is basically deprioritize a bit the editing and make sure you make some time in your calendar to actually do some marketing. Do whatever you need to do to make this easier for yourself. For example, I do all sorts now. For example, I use Aftershoot to make sure AI helps me turn around those galleries a bit faster. The new version of Aftershoot I've got, they've given me access to a white balance model, which I think is coming up very soon for everyone else. And that has really helped in terms of consistency. It's still not 100% perfect, but it is definitely better than it was. So that's helped. If you truly can't find the time, consider outsourcing it. I've spoken to Udio before. You can find that conversation on my previous episodes of my podcast. Basically, Udio will more than happily take that work off you, obviously at a cost. But at the end of the day, all work is a balance between time and money. We sacrifice our time to earn money. That's all the job is. So consider this. Is your time better served by letting someone else like Udio edit those galleries for you? As I've spoken to them before, and a lot of my friends who also use Udio will attest to, they do more editing than I actually do on a lot of the photos. So they're not getting a lower level of service if I don't personally edit it. They're actually getting, if anything, a higher standard of service, and they are editing to my standards and my tastes. So yeah, so basically, long story short, do what you can. You might even consider doing less editing on some of the filler shots, and we all do filler shots. It's absolutely fine. They're still good photographs, but it's the sort of photograph that is not going to, for whatever reason, it's not going to end up on your portfolio. It's not going to end up in your socials. The bride's not going to print it out and put it in the album, but it's just a funny moment or something that she'll want to see at a wedding. So those sort of photos, can you get away with just a lighter level of editing rather than doing the full works for every single wedding photo, which obviously takes a lot longer. So yeah, so I thought this week I would talk a little bit about what marketing activities I've been doing, and hopefully it will inspire you to do the same. So the first thing I've done recently is I've been updating my website. I have changed some of my images around, and actually, I have finally removed my dancing bride. So for those who have seen my website before, this image here that I'm showing on the video, that is an image that I've been using about 3 years. And the bride's called Charlie. She's absolutely amazing. It was an absolute belter of a wedding, and it just basically summed up everything I want in a client. She looks amazing. She's having a great party, and those are the sorts of brides I wanted to attract. I've never been the sort of photographer who wants to work with couples who just want to stand there all day and, "Oh, I'm a princess, I look beautiful, photograph me." I don't like those sorts of weddings. I find them quite stressful. So I knew when I put that image on as my homepage image that it would be quite Marmite. So some people would love it, some people would hate it, and I was comfortable with that. But like I said, this year, things have, inquiry-wise, things have definitely been quieter. I think everybody's been saying that. And also at the same time, I have taken a decision to sort of nudge my work slightly more towards the editorial. I'm not going full editorial, guys, but just sort of like give a more editorial vibe of my work. Which has meant that I don't think this image now fits, which is a real shame because I love that image. So yeah, and I know some of you are probably going, "Oh my God, another editorial wanker, all that posing and directing and direct flash, blah, blah, blah. I really don't want to do that." But hear me out. So, like many photographers, that's what I used to think editorial was all about. Um, you know, Basically, I spoke to a photographer I know called Tobias Tao. Some of you might have heard of him because he's been in the industry for, well, forever, really. He was a photographer when I started, and that was a long time ago. And he basically inadvertently helped shift my mindset because his work has evolved as it would do over 15 years. I think he's been in the business for, maybe even longer. And he basically said he used to do, a lot more of what, let's call it, more traditional posing, and do the creative portraits, etc., etc. And now, if you look at his website and his work, he's full editorial, very editorial vibes, beautiful work, but ever so editorial. And he said he actually found it a lot easier to do that because there's less posing involved, which for me was a moment because, I always thought it would be more posing and more finessing and making sure every little thing is perfect. But he said no, because, that's not the vibe. It's just a lot more relaxed and natural walking type of shots. And it's just freed him up a lot to sort of concentrate on other areas, which I thought was fascinating. And then another thing that happened was earlier this year, I had two weddings, which were what I call unicorn weddings. I think it's a phrase I've got from my friend Marie. Basically, it's a wedding where absolutely everything, all the elements just came and aligned together. So, I had a gorgeous couple, gorgeous venue. Everything just flowed so well. And the party was electric, and you just look at the images afterwards and you just think, "Oh, I nailed that wedding." And both weddings actually gave off very heavy editorial vibes. So that just made me think, maybe I'm thinking about editorial in the wrong way. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think for a minute I am gonna go full editorial, because I don't think I'll ever be able to sort of beat, the editorial photographers like Tobiah, like Zach and Grace, who've also been on the podcast. Their work is absolutely exquisite. They really give off that luxury, high-end editorial vibe. And that's not a market that A, I feel that I can compete in, and B, nor do I want to compete in that market. I'm happy at the sort of price bracket and the sort of couples and the venues I attract. But at the same time, like I said, I have had several weddings this year which have given that sort of vibe, and they have all been good fun. So yeah, so I thought there's probably a happy compromise here where I can still do the sort of documentary photos, do some more relaxed, natural style of portraits, which we all tell couples would do anyway. And also, of course, the group photos. Honestly just think that there's a real market for that, and those are the sorts of people I'm going to be targeting. So yeah, so I hope that sort of gives you an idea of what I've been doing on my website. All these things just made me really rethink what I've been up to, basically, and what I'm showing. So yeah, what do you think? If you want to shout at me, then feel free to DM me or post a message in my Facebook group. I've not mentioned the Facebook group yet. If you want to come and chat and join a community full of like-minded people, it's a very supportive environment. Just go to Facebook and do a search for Wedding Photography Unveiled Community. I would love to see you guys there. So yeah, so what else I've been doing on marketing? Oh yeah, so I've changed the way I blog now. So what I used to do was I used to get the photos and I used to upload them to WordPress, create a gallery, and bada bing, bada boom, just post a blog post. I've not been posting every wedding, but occasionally there's a wedding that I think I'd like to show that on my website. Or I need something to support a venue page. So instead, what I'm doing now is I have been using PicTime to create the blogs, and for two real reasons. The first one is all the photos are already in PicTime, so it's actually really easy just to scroll through the gallery and just pick the photos I want to appear. And excuse me. And secondly, they have some really nice looking layouts that would take me quite some time to try and design myself in WordPress, because that's much more sort of like a block builder. You do what you want on it. But having these PicTime blog templates already has really made things much, much quicker. So yes, I've been using the different styles there. I've uploaded my fonts and created my custom color profile. So it all looks as though it and feels like it's just an extension of my website rather than just going to a completely different platform. So hopefully people visiting won't even notice that they're getting that blog served by PicTime. And I just think it's just saved me a lot of time as well, which is the main thing. So yeah, so the other thing I've started to do is I've started to move away now from using JPEGs as the images when I am uploading to my website now. Instead, I'm using the new file format called AVIF, which is AVIF. And this is a new format which I think one day might become the standard. I don't know. Um, JPEGs have been around for so long, I'm wondering how many people will actually go to it. But basically, AVIF is a much more modern version of JPEG, so it still compresses all your files. The file formats are much smaller, so that means your website loads a lot quicker. And one night I fell down the rabbit hole of trying to optimize my website, and um, hours and hours later, I'd optimized it to the point where on Google mobile page speeds and mobile score, I was getting like 98 out of 100, which is insane. Um, it was a fair bit of work, I admit, and being honest, I don't know, unless you're nerdy like me, then it's pointless. As long as your website loads pretty quickly, then you're doing fine in terms of SEO. I don't think for a minute having that faster page speed is going to help my SEO one bit. But having it that high just, I don't know, just gave the nerd in me a bit of a sense of satisfaction. So I don't know, it amused me for an evening anyway. Um, so yeah, so whilst we're talking about SEO, I have also removed Nottingham as a priority on my homepage. In the past, I tried to rank my homepage for Nottingham wedding photographer, and nowadays I find that SEO isn't as important to my marketing. So, in fact, in certain ways, it was holding me back because I have had people contact me before, and they used to say, "Look, Martin, I don't know if you do this, but do you photograph weddings outside Nottingham?" So I don't know if any couples didn't get in touch because that's all they saw, when my keyword and my subject titles are all revolving around Nottingham, then maybe they got the impression that I didn't photograph weddings anywhere else. So I took those off because I don't care about that ranking anymore. And in fact, other ways of marketing have become much more important now to the way I work. Um, so yeah, so that's one thing. And oh yeah, AEO, that's a relatively new term. And basically that's AI Engine Optimization. This is things like ChatGPT, Google Gemini. These will be the next generation. I know it. Um, so that's when people are asking for recommendations on ChatGPT instead of using Google search. And it's grown massively in the past year. And I honestly think it will continue to do so. And at the moment, I think people might be typing in something like, give me a list of wedding photographers in Nottingham. But I think over time, people will learn to use AI much more advanced. So what I think they will do is, for example, they'd say, oh, my budget is this. I want a photographer with this sort of style. Here are a couple of photos that I love, in the style that I love. I'm getting married at this venue. It's important that the photographers worked there before. Can you find me some photographers that will fit all those criteria? I think with that in mind, it's important that we start to optimize our website to rank in AI as well. And I've been doing a bit of research on this, and basically, what it looks like AI pays a lot of notice on is how often your brand is mentioned over the internet. So, in the past with Google, they looked at backlinks, which are links back to your website, and they were notoriously hard to get. Good backlinks were really hard to get. Now, AI has not completely done away with backlinks, but they certainly don't prioritize it as much. It's more mentions. How many times has your company been mentioned over the internet? And also what also plays a very important role apparently is the number of reviews you get. So that's important and where those reviews are as well. So yeah, this year I'm going to be doing a big push on getting couples to leave me reviews, and I'm going to concentrate not just on Google. I still will be getting as many people as I can to leave me reviews on Google, but other platforms as well. I mean, last year, thanks to Google Gate, I already started getting people to leave me reviews on Trustpilot, just in case Google Gate happened again. But I think I will redouble my efforts and try and find other places that couples can leave me reviews on as well, because I think is it the stone as it rolls down the hill gathers more moss or something like that? I can't remember the exact phrase. But basically, it's a bit like a snowball effect, isn't it? When it goes down the hill, the snowball starts small, but by the time it reaches the bottom, it's big. And that's what I'm hoping my efforts on AEO are like. If I start little now and build it up over time, in 12 to 18 months, hopefully, I'll have a big snowball, and I will be being mentioned by AI whenever someone does a relevant search. So yeah, so that's a slow burner over time, but hopefully that will work. The other thing Dagger and I are busy doing in the background is we are prepping for not one but two wedding fairs this weekend. We are at different locations. Um, it just so happens that two great wedding fairs are on in one weekend, as is common nowadays. A lot of venues are always doing wedding fairs now. So we are, for the first time, we will divide and conquer. She's going to one, I'm going to the other. But what that's meant is that we've had to effectively create a second stand as well, because in the past we just had one set of like roller banners and stuff for each of our businesses because we're generally only at one wedding fair at a time. But this time we want to be at two places, and we're going to share a table. So we've had to basically double up. So yeah, um, I've had to design a new roller banner, and we've used Canva to do that, which was actually really, really easy. Really, really liked doing it that way. And the thing that I love the most is when I went to output, I could just pick PDF, and then it was a drop down box whether I wanted the colors in RGB or CMYK. And just in case you don't know, those are basically color spaces. Different printers will use different color spaces, so you have to figure out which one they prefer. And in the past, when I've tried to do that in Photoshop, it was always a bit of a gamble, and sometimes I got stuff back and it didn't look right. So I didn't, and I didn't want to gamble with something like a roller banner. So I basically asked the printer which they preferred, and the one I found was Swift Print UK, which was actually surprisingly cheap. It was like 42 quid for a roller banner, which I thought was a great bargain. And they just said, "Oh, yeah, it's fine. RGB is fine." So I sent them that, and it's great. So yeah, so if you're after a new roller banner, check out Swift Print UK. We've got two now, one for me, one for Dagger, and they both look absolutely great. Also had to redesign my leaflets and brochures because, like an idiot, I've somehow managed to delete my brochure source files. So although I've got, like, a little brochure left that I can show people, it I couldn't edit anything and I couldn't reprint it. So I've had to completely redesign it. I did consider buying a template off Etsy, but none of them seemed to fit the vibe I was going for. So I ended up pretty much just redoing about 80% of the brochure itself. So yeah, and again, I've sent that off and I had to do it late last night. I think I was up to 1 a.m. last night doing it because I realized that if I didn't order it by early morning today, then it wouldn't get here in time for Friday, because the wedding fair is on Sunday. So lastminute.com, but I've done it now. So that's the main thing. I just had a bit of a lie in this morning. Yeah, so if you don't use Canva, do definitely check it out. We are on the premium version, so where we pay an annual fee. But what you can do is you can add team members to it. So what you could do, if you've got like good friends who are also photographers, you could club together, get yourselves a subscription, and split the cost between you. Yeah, you don't actually see each other's projects unless you share it out, so that's fine. So it's not like you're gonna be able to see each other's stuff. Not that I think this sort of stuff is very secret anyway, is it? And lastly, I had to get a new sample album printed as well. I use Photo for that. Aldona, my customer service rep, she's been my customer service rep for 8 years now. She's always great to help. And yeah, they're currently running an offer which is 85% off sample albums. So that made it dirt cheap. And I was just blown away by the fact my sample album came in pretty much a week, which was ridiculously fast, really. And yeah, the quality is, as usual, great. I love Photo because they've just got that um, perfect balance between quality and my ability to sell the album. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see time and time again is photographers who go for the most beautiful looking album, which is mega expensive because of it, and then they can't sell the album afterwards and they sell like one or two a year. Whereas it's far better to find something which, might be a little bit lower in quality, but couples don't see albums every day like we do. So they still think it's a great quality album. And because I can sell it to them cheaper, I end up selling a lot more over the course of a year and of course making more money. So yeah, just check them out. They, like I said, they've got 85% off sample album at the moment. And mention my name and see if they'll look after you. I'm sure they will. Yeah, so back to more marketing. Yeah, recently I mentioned that I've been doing some Google ads. Being honest, that hasn't really worked. I spent over 600 quid and I basically got one lead. And that lead I was already booked for on their date. So yeah, it was a complete waste of 600 quid basically. I know Google Ads do work for people. I do have friends who use it and get a lot of bookings through it. But quite frankly, it just wasn't working for me. So instead, I paused the ads and I switched focus to Instagram. I created an Instagram ad. It's just a quick ad that, and I found that it got a lot more engagement. So I found a lot more people were messaging me. I was getting like 2 to 3, some days even 5 or 6 people messaging me, DMing me saying, "Hey, are you available?" Blah blah blah. Um, the only thing I will say is that the search intent on Instagram is practically zero. So what I mean by that is when people are scrolling on Instagram, they're not really well, more often than not, they're not really looking for a wedding photographer. Your ad has what's called disrupted them. They've stopped on my, your ad or my ad and thought, "Oh, I'll get in touch." But they may not be seriously looking for a photographer. They may not even be in a position to look for a photographer. So quite a few of the inquiries I got, people didn't have venues, didn't have dates. They've just got engaged. They're just doing a little bit of market research, or obviously there's also those who I'm already booked for, or just unsuitable, like they're at the other side of the country on a peak date, and I think, nah, I'm not going to bother with that because I can probably gamble and get something much more local. So there's lots of reasons why those inquiries don't convert. I'm not even counting them as inquiries. So unless they've scheduled a meeting, then I wouldn't even put it in my CRM system. But funnily enough, one of the first people who did get in touch with me was actually a previous bridesmaid at a wedding. And she said, "Hey, I've just seen your ad." Long story short, she ended up booking me. And although she was a previous bridesmaid who said she was going to get in touch anyway, I've still got to count it because firstly, she saw the ad. And secondly, who knows, she might have gone to a wedding fair or met another photographer somehow, and someone else advertised on Instagram, for example, and tempted her away from me. So yeah, I'll count that one as a win. So that was good because that one looks like it's going to be a good wedding as well. Yeah. Yeah. So actually thinking about it, the past 6 to 8 weeks have actually been quite good on bookings. I hope it's been the same for everyone. To the point now where I've actually stopped the paid ads, even though Instagram was getting a quite good traction. I've actually stopped that as well, purely because I feel like I can get my target number of bookings now without having to resort to paid ads. So there's no point in burning money on something which I'm going to be able to do anyway. Or at least I think I can. But it's nice to know that if things don't quite go to the way I'm thinking of, then I can just go to my phone, hit a switch, and the Instagram ads will start all over again. So yeah, so if your inquiries and bookings are down, then I would definitely consider running some paid ads if you just need a boost. I often think as photographers, we think too small. We're micro businesses, and often we run the risk of operating like a side hustle more than an actual business. We how often do people have actually a budget for marketing? I bet many of you don't. But if you think about businesses in general, virtually all businesses have a marketing budget. They know what they're going to spend on marketing and how they're going to spend it on marketing. And, if we are going to be a profitable business, we should adopt those practices as well. And a friend of mine, I mentioned earlier, does Google Ads do work for someone? I know someone who puts a lot of money every year into Google Ads, but at the same time, he's booked over 100 weddings this year, and he's a videographer. And that's just crazy because the amount of work that must entail. But Google Ads are definitely working for him. In fact, that's just reminded me I should drop him a message and try and get him on the podcast. Spoke to him a while back, but he said, "Look, I'm just so busy at the moment. Come back to me when things are quieter." So I drop him a message, see if I can tempt him to come on and talk to us all about how he's making not Instagram, Google Ads work for him and get him, and how he's managed to basically get so many bookings. It's just a crazy number of bookings. So yeah, so that's where I am with marketing. My point is, don't neglect it. Don't be one of these Facebook martyrs who's all woe is me online, and reveling in the fact that they're snowed under in editing, because all you're really just saying is, I'm just wallowing in the fact that I'm doing unproductive work every day. And I just don't think that's smart. And that might be an unpopular opinion, and you might be sitting there giving me the V's, but I truly believe that we need to be doing productive work for the business, not and minimizing, not doing, minimizing the unproductive work that we are doing. Um, yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about is gas, and I don't mean the toxic sort. I mean gear acquisition syndrome, and this is something which I've had for a long time, and it's generally a male thing, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's more men that suffer from gas than women. Dagger, let's take Dagger for an example. Um, she's actually a lot more technical than she lets on. She just doesn't like talking about it. But if you put in a room with a bunch of videographers and they were all talking about techie stuff like S-Log and shutter speeds and apertures and ISOs and stuff, she would easily stand toe to toe and talk to them about that. But at the same time, she finds it incredibly boring, so she doesn't bother. And I think since the A7S III camera came out, she's just not shown any interest in buying any new cameras, unlike me. I'm always forever looking at new camera, new lenses. More often than not, she only gets a new lens because I bought it and she's seen it and gone, "Oh, that looks nice," and then like nicks it. And then eventually I persuade her to buy her own lens. So yeah, so my point is, I I love new shiny kit, and even though inside I know it makes no sense, uh, buying gear is just spending money on stuff that depreciates. And nowadays, especially at my age, I'm just trying to move away from buying stuff that's just going to cost me money for no return. But at the same time, I just there's just stuff that I want, and often it makes no sense. Like for example, I would love a 35mm 1.2. I don't even use the 35mm prime that I've got. It sits in a cupboard. In fact, there's a cupboard full of lenses there that I don't even use. It really is something I should go and find all the boxes for and send a message to MBP or Wex and see what they'll give me for it, because not only have I got a 35mm prime there, just off the top of my head, I can think I've got the Sony 135mm, 14mm, a 55, a macro lens, a 28. It's just like, that's just off the top of my head, and not to mention all the other stuff like flashes and, oh, in fact, there's an Insta360, the X4 version sat there as well. I should just get rid of it all. In fact, that might be a good way for me to afford the one thing that I do want to buy, which is the DJI Mini 5 Pro, which should be announced on September the 17th, which is actually should be on the day this podcast is released. And the reason I want that is I guess it's a bit a toy, but I've already got the Mini 3, but I actually can see a good reason why, and that is it's got a much bigger sensor. It's 50 megapixels, which means that I can do everybody group shots better. I'm already using the Mini Pro 3, but that 48 megapixel camera is cheating a bit. It's taking several 12 megapixels and combining it together to give me a 48 megapixel image, but the image isn't pure. If you put it against a pure 50 megapixel sensor like the new one is, I'm expecting that the image quality will be far better on the new one. So yeah, I'm really hoping that they should be announcing it today, September the 17th, and I will probably just pre-order it because I do think it will be a game changer. And the reason, if you haven't already done it, I know some of you do, but not many of you do. And the reason I use a drone to get the everybody shot is purely because people look at it. If I like stand on a pair of ladders or stick my head out of a window like I used to do, and I could be shouting at people, "Look at me, look at me, look at me," and people don't care. They just carry on their conversations. But as soon as the drone takes off, everybody's like, "Oh, look, a drone." Because, as photographers and videographers, we're used to all these drones, but your average Joe Public in the street, they don't see drones all that often. So when they see one at a wedding, they're like dead excited. And then they all instantly look up at it and they're like, snap, got here. So it's just made things better in that respect. And also, I've been able to um, take everyone's shots in many more places and um, really sort of like think about the composition, what's in the frame, what's not. So, for example, I can now put the venue behind the couple, so that's in the photo as well, rather than just sticking my head out of the window and taking a photo, and the background is basically grass, if you know what I mean. And it just makes the photo look a bit better. And, in case you're worried about, will the image quality be any good, I have actually printed these photos in albums, and nobody's ever come back to me to say, "Oh, the quality is terrible." Um, so yeah, so that's something I want, and I will let you know next episode if I've got one, which I probably will, I'm afraid. So yeah, so whilst I'm trying to be good with gas, I don't know, you tell me, am I still gassy or not? Yeah. So, actually, one more thing. I've just thought of something. I have actually bought another thing, but I had to. I had to. And Dagger doesn't even know I bought this, but I don't think she'll care. Basically, I bought the new Godox IT30 Pro, which is a little tiny flash. Look at the size of it. If you're watching on the video, it's tiny. It's even smaller than the palm of my hand. And this was basically, I wasn't going to buy this, but basically my AD100 died at the last wedding on Saturday. I don't know why. I just pulled it out of the bag and it just wouldn't turn on. I tried different batteries and stuff and it just didn't turn on at all. So I figured that I needed to replace it. And when I thought about it more, I thought, oh, AD100s are great little flashes, but they're so expensive. They're like cost the same price as like an AD200. So I didn't particularly want to spend best part of 300 quid on another flash, especially because most of the time all I'm doing with it is I'm using it on the dance floor, which I don't need a lot of power for. So Adam Lowndes basically showed me the IT30 Pro that he's got, and I just thought that's dinky. So the idea is I'll just put it in slave mode because it's not only TTL and you can use it as a master. It's also acts as a remote slave as well. So the idea is I'll just have it in one hand like that, and when I'm on the dance floor, I just basically hold it out like that, and then I can direct the light wherever I want to. And bit like at the moment I'm using flash on a stick, but instead now it'll be on my hand instead. And look at it, it's tiny, it's so light that it's just I'm dead excited to use it basically. I know it's a bit of a toy. And the great thing is it was less than 70 quid on Amazon. So I thought, it's just like not throwaway money, but you know what I mean? It's much cheaper than the 300 quid I was looking at for the AD100. So yeah, we'll see. If I get on with it, I might even do a little mini review, although I seem to start wanting to do reviews, but then I just can't be bothered, basically. Yeah, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was, I don't know about you guys, but I've been getting some RSI on my arms this year, and my shoulder and my neck and my back often hurt, especially after a long session at the computer. And I think basically, oh, well, not just think, I know basically it's because my posture's been awful and I've just been not sitting in the right position. So I've done a bit of research and, I've got a good chair already. I've got a Herman Miller chair, but it just wasn't set up right. So what I've done now is I've raised the armrest in the right position. I've got like a generic keyboard wrist rest, and then I've got a same for a mouse pad, as you can see here. And lastly, I've switched from the Apple mouse, which I always love the Apple mouse, but as a result, I've bought the Logitech Lift mouse from Amazon, which basically it's a vertical mouse, so you hold it vertically, so your wrist doesn't bend like that awkwardly. It's more like that. It's a much more natural position to sort of use it in. So so I just thought I'd mention it because I know probably the majority of you, I'm guessing, aren't set up correctly, and especially if you've just got a laptop and you try and do all your editing on a laptop, then you're probably just hunched up all day, which long term isn't good for your back and your neck and your shoulders like me. So I just thought I'd mention it and maybe inspire you to look into it and avoid the RSI and the joint pains that I've got at the moment. Yeah. So what else? I think that's pretty much it from me. If with time, I'll try and record another episode before Dagger and I go to Mykonos in early October. We're joining Roxy and Jenna again from Anthology Workshops, who were on my podcast at the start of the year. I think Mykonos is full now. Not 100% sure. Maybe check them out on anthologyworkshops.com. I've been asked to do a short SEO and website talk, so I'm quite excited by that. But I better start thinking about what I'm going to say. It's got a bit cold recently, so a bit of warm sunshine will be very, very gratefully received, and always love a bit of the sea air as well. Yes, that's it. If you've got any subjects that you'd like me to talk about, or if there's anybody you would like to see on the podcast, then do let me know. I will do my best to sort that out for you. But until then, thank you so much for listening. Hope to catch you on the next one. Bye for now.